everyone. Happy to be here at HGC talking about game design for ad monetization. Quickly about myself, I self-published my first game on like a decade ago with 4 of my good friends. It's called Yaniv. It's a multiplayer card game. It's still live. You can play it on iPhones. Since then, I've been a game designer / product owner at Playtika, Ilion, and Jelly Button. And now I'm a game designer at Moonee. All right. A little bit more about myself, about my hobbies. I like to play Super Smash Bros. Ultimate and Quake, and I like to compete at those as well. And I kind of suck at them, but I still do it. Here I am placing 2,049 out of 3,535 players at EVO. And here I am losing to a much better player at me in QuakeCon 2019. All right. So we're going to talk about game design principles for ad monetization. This assumes you have the basic knowledge regarding ads in hyper-casual and in general, interstitial and rewarded videos. There's a lot to go through here. The principle here, the main idea is to give you as many takeaways for you to apply in your games when you make decision regarding implementing ad monetizations. Okay, the type of ads that we will cover in this talk will be interstitial ads and rewarded ads. We won't be talking about banner ads, but banner ads are good. If you can put them in your game without them being invasive, I suggest you doing so. There's a nice uplift to your revenue. Now, what do we mean by game design principles? We basically mean 3 main things. Actually, a bit more, but it's player psychology, which is human psychology. A lot of it is borrowed by human psychology. We'll talk about UI UX a little bit, and some points from experience, from literature, and sage advice. Not my own. I'm not a sage. Other people much smarter than me. Okay, first, let's start with interstitials, which is most of the time your main source of revenue from your hyper-casual game. With interstitial ads, there is one principle that I want you to take away from here, is that interstitial ads equals playtime. No matter how you spin it, the strongest correlation you will have with your interstitial ads revenue is your playtime. So we're going to try and break it down into a few sections, which will help you have a better playtime in your game, thus have better interstitial ads performance. And we will also talk about ad logic, which is regarding how to implement the triggers of your ad logic in game. Okay, so let's start. First of all, the main thing I want you to have in mind with interstitial is that the game must flow. The playtime, as we said, is the lifeblood of your interstitial monetization, and just like spice in Dune, the spice must flow, the game must flow, or else you won't have interstitial monetization. So keep that in mind when implementing interstitial ads. Game designer often refer to this flow chart, the flow channel by Mihail. We always strive to have the game, the player in the middle of it, like have perfect flow, not too much anxiety, not too much boredom, straight in the middle. Now, while this is the case in most games, and you want to keep that, you want to achieve that, that's always the goal. In hyper-casual games, anxiety means death. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. You want to choose the slower death, which is boredom. You can try to mitigate that. You can try to fix that. You can't fix a dead person. You can't fix someone who left your app, your game. So we want to choose the lesser evil here, which is a slower death. A few words regarding difficulty. Your game should be easy to pick up. Very simple. Have a tutorial, but should be able to pick up and play. Should have simple controls, which is usually one-handed, portrait mode, and it should have trivial to moderate challenge. Now, what about the slow death we just talked about, Yotam? Isn't that coming up for us in our game if we keep boring our players? So there's a few things you can do about it. Here's one advice for me: is to implement a design pattern called layers of challenge. Now, layers of challenge is mostly known from stuff like the star system in casual games and in hyper games, where you can achieve a 1 star and still pass the level, or you can have 3 stars and pass it in flying colors. Layers of challenge offers a lot of variety for the players, and it really allows them to play the game however they want it. It's so strong, some players, like this streamer right here, decided to add a layer of challenge of his own and play the entire trilogy of Dark Souls without getting hit. So how do we apply it in our game? In our game, we have, let's take Makeover Run, for example. We have the stair system in the end of the level. The player can reach the first step and still pass the level. You have a little dance, and then the player is still able to pass the level, move on, or they can reach the crush in the top level and have a kiss. So they have like a special moment, a bigger goal to get to. So we accommodate all type of players here. What's strong about this is it offers offering layers of challenge casts a wider net, helps you to grab all types of players, from the noob, the tryhards, and the filthy casuals. Now, a small warning regarding difficulty, actually a big warning regarding difficulty. Lots of game devs fall into this, and it's a tale as old as time. The game devs usually are expert in playing their own games, so they have expert play, and they usually use better equipment. We see here someone playing with a mouse and keyboard. That usually is the case as well with hyper casual devs. And the player is playing in a completely different environment and it is not on the same level of play as the game dev. The GIFs are not working in this presentation, but you would have seen this StarCraft player really crushing it on the keyboard. So one solution for that, we can take it from the Doom devs at id back in the 90s. The Doom devs got really good at their game. They played deathmatch all day, and it became a problem. They couldn't balance their levels. So what they did is they used self-imposed constraint and basically decided that they would play the game with a pistol only in order to balance the game. So try to use a self-imposed constraint in order to help you balance your game better. A few other options for self-imposed constraints is to play with your non-dominant hand, play tired, you're going to be tired, or play under the influence if you're 18 plus or whatever is the legal age in your country. In the end, nothing beats playtesters. Really, when you look at the data and you have no idea why players are churning, why someone is failing a certain level, sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. The best thing is to put the game in a playtester's hands, and this is you in the background, furiously taking notes and not saying a word while watching the playtester play the game. Moving on to level design. I'll go through those points quickly and I'll expand on some of them. Your first levels should be impossible to fail, impossible, or nearly impossible. The trivial parts in the beginning should go by relatively quickly, so the people that are experts won't have to suffer them too much, and that will help you a lot as well to avoid the slow death. You should have short intervals of play. I wrote short intervals of play because now we have different genres. Some of them are not level-based, so it's about intervals of play, not necessarily levels. Your gameplay should evolve. meaning the player should see new things, new mechanics open up. Maybe it's the same mechanics shown in a different way, but it should evolve and show the player that something is happening in this game. And the last point here, which I think is the most important, and you should revise your levels. The first set of levels you come up with when you first test the game is not the game. It's not the level set you want to have when your game is already matured. You want to go back and revise them. And here we have some sage advice from John Romero. Make your first level last. By then, you know the game inside out, and you know what you need to teach the player. Above all, make the player curious by showing them interesting things. Great advice. Now, going back to short intervals of play, how short is too short? Now, the answer is kind of annoying. It is, you need to feel it. Just like musicians have an internal rhythm, just like video editors use that a lot, you have this internal rhythm you count on. Game designers, game developers need to develop this internal rhythm to understand what's short, what's not eventful enough. It's something that you need to sort of hone. If you're not sure about it, if you don't feel like you're there yet, here's a short trick that you can use. Try to say or write your level experience as a story. This way, any shortcomings on the level will pop out once it's on paper, once you say it out loud. There's an example here. I'm not going to read it. I put the ducky here because it's a lot similar to the rubber ducky principle of programmers, that they speak to a rubber ducky and they find the answer within themselves. The next principle we'll talk about is hold the ball. And yeah, I don't know who's doing Game of Thrones memes at 2022, but I took the chance here. But hold the ball is about keeping the player in a state of play. You know, if you walk in the street and someone kicks a soccer ball at you or throws you a ball, you're immediately sucked into this state of play. You feel compelled to hold the ball, maybe throw it around, maybe toss it back. So hold the ball is about that. It's about keeping the player in a state of play. And how do we do it in our game? Here's a few examples. Again, the GIFs are not running, but it's good enough for me to illustrate my point. The game should invite the player to play it. Look at the example on the right from Countmasters. A great game. The player is in the main menu, but he already sees the level in front of him. There's the math gates with really high numbers, considering the level design. There's later on lower numbers, so the high numbers kind of attract the player. It makes them compelled to play. The game usually should act like the level already started. There's an example here from Find the Alien, where you have a group of people talking. The game is alive, it's pulsating, it's asking you to come and play it. So the game should act as if it's already starting to play. And your gameplay should start instantly. Tap to start, hold to move, all of that. We'll speak about ad logic now. Two important things about ad logic, which means the triggers and what's going to trigger interstitial ads in your game, is that ad trigger logic should be consistent. Now, consistent is in the perception of the player, and I'll demonstrate it with an example, meaning that even though your ad logic might be consistent, there's the same rules all the time, the player cannot understand them, and it brings him to an anxiety mode. And the second point is the interstitials should not interrupt your crucial moments, and I'll demonstrate that as well. Okay, let's talk about triggers. So I choose an example that's not for level-based games. We have a lot of new genres popping up in hyper-casual, so I wanted to take a chance to speak about one of those, because level-based games are pretty solved as far as the interstitial placements, and I wanted to do something a little bit different. So we have the menu here, the upgrade menu in Stone Miner, another great game from last year. And I am considering putting an interstitial trigger in any one of those items in the upgrade menu. Now, between those four options, which is this scrolling thing between the number of wheels, the tabs for the different upgrades, and the upgrade button, and the last one is the X button, only one of them is actually the most valid. And you might still get the same result here, most likely. Now, why is that? Why is the close button the best option here for your add trigger, for your interstitial trigger? The reason is it's associated with a certain action. All the other buttons are as well, but this is something I wanted to still drive across. It's associated with closing the screen. It avoids core actions, and it's a closed-ended action. Now, what do I mean by that? So if I go through the menus here and I want to go to a different tab in the upgrade menu, or I want to press upgrades, that's not a closed-ended action. That's an open-ended action. I might still want to upgrade a little bit more. I might want to go to different tabs. Closing the upgrade menu is a closed-ended action. I'm done with that. So it's an okay place to put an interstitial. This conditions the player, and it's helps the ads go more smoothly. Think about television. Before you go into commercial, you get a small transition, commercial. It helps you ease into this experience. It's sort of like the same experience. And in TV as well, commercials in the middle of a show are always worse than commercials in the end of the show. Think of it that as well. And the second point I want to put across here for interstitial triggers, the logic, is do not interrupt crucial moments. Now, imagine you have this progress bar going from 0 to 100 gradually with every level. And when I get to 100, I get this cool sword in the end of it. It's filling up all the way. I'm at 100%. And suddenly Taylor Swift is selling me Diet Coke. What you've done here is you made your reward feel weaker. You made the bar weaker in the player's mind as well. Its association is not clear. The connection between the two is severed. So you want to do this, either show it after or before, not in the middle of a crucial moment. All right, moving on to rewarded ads. So rewarded ads, why do we want to use them? They have a higher value, they increase engagement, and they do not hurt retention. Now, that is somewhat of a misconception that rewarded ads cannot reduce retention. If you give me a mission to reduce retention with rewarded videos, I'll be able to do that. Trust me. And why is that? It's because rewarded ads are a transaction, and transactions can be disappointing. Think about it. Your players basically says, I want that thing. I'm willing to put the time, watch the ad, and get the stuff. So rewarded ads as a transaction is a transaction, and we want to treat them as such. Now, what makes a good transaction? Game design can be taken from all points of life. So let's try to find an example for a good transaction. What makes a good transaction in real life? It should be clear, it should be attractive, and it should be well positioned. Now, moving on with the example from real life is the restaurant bill. Now, I try to look back to my experience and what was the best restaurant bill experience in my life. It was in Japan. The Japanese restaurant transaction is really well structured. It's very clear. You give the bill comes to your table. You don't have to pay it. You pick it up. You go to the lady or the man, and you pay your bill. You get back your change. She says exactly what change she brings you, and that's it. That's a very clear transaction, very good transaction, and it's attractive as well. The food there is great, and it's well positioned. I'm already fed. I'm probably a little bit drunk. I'm sedated, so it's a good position for a transaction. Give you an example of a bad position, or another example of a good position is, for example, if I'm doing takeaway, I go somewhere and I want to take takeaway. I pay before I eat, but it suits that specific use case. Imagine going for takeaway, going back, eating, and then coming back and having to pay. So that's not a well-positioned transaction. Okay, so let's move on to the first part of how to make this transaction, the rewarded video transaction, good. How to make it a good transaction for the players is, first of all, making it clear. How to make it clear? Show the reward. Show what you're giving them. And that's I have two examples here. So one is, I'll get it out of the way first, is you have to disclose the ad. You're not going to mask it under a button that doesn't look like an ad. You show them what they will get. The example on the left here is from Monsters Gang. You see the character with the sword. You see it moving around. You understand what it's for. You show them what they will get. The example on the right is for a bunch of cash that goes into my inventory. Which really demonstrates the power of A to B animation. You need to show me getting the prize. A lot of players get prizes they're not even aware of. They didn't see this process, and they're like, "Where's my stuff?" I've seen this many times, so you want to avoid it. A to B animations are really important. The second point is you want to make it attractive. I have 2 points I want to talk about here really quickly. You want to make the prize significant, and if you can, make it part of the world. That's much better. You have a scale here in the bottom of complexity of the reward you give. The most simple one is just flat out give a prize, either a shortcut, which is more involved into the gameplay, and the last one is the part of the economy. Make the prize part of the economy, which is the most complex. To make your reward attractive, you need to understand your audience, what to sell, and then you have to pay attention on how you sell it. So you want to understand your audience, what to sell, and then you want to know how to sell it. So there's a lot of different taxonomies and ways to analyze your audience. There's the Bartel taxonomy of different player types. There's the Octalysis analysis of different motivations of play. And those are really, really nice, and you can find many others online. In the end, there's yourself. You should love yourself, first of all. But in the end, as yourself, you have to make the decision. Those taxonomies are not going to decide for you exactly what to do with your game. You know your game. You made your game. You should decide. You can use those as tools, but in the end, it's you making the decision. You made the game. You know who your audience is. A good few questions we have from the book Art of Game Design by Jesse Schell is a few questions that you can ask yourself to understand your audience. What do they like? What don't they like? What do they expect to see in the game? If you were in their place, what would you want to see in the game? What would they dislike about my game in particular? So we ask those questions ourselves when we make games, and I'll demonstrate it for Makeover Run again. So me and the game designer Yossi, we sat down and we were like, what is this game about? What do the players like in our game? And we came up with a few of those examples here, and we try to implement it as well as possible. The players in Makeover Run, they want to customize their character. They want to have creative control. They want to feel involved in the game. So we had a very robust system of customizations, of different clothes, and so on and so forth. Now, the next point is about how to sell it. Link is not going to work in this presentation, but I suggest everyone go and watch this. This is probably the greatest 30 minutes of television ever made. It's the Handy Chef infomercial. I recommend you watch it later. Great salesperson. I'll give 2 examples from our games. You want to sell the experience. So, okay, the GIF over there on the right is not really good. I'll focus on Perfect Time. So we want to sell the experience. You want to show the game what the experience will be like. You want to show the player what the experience will be like. In Perfect Time, we had bonus levels, which the player can play for rewarded videos. Now, at first, we had a small window that would say, here's a special level, a static picture of it. Do you want to play it? And we replaced it with what you see here in the presentation. Is we brought the player into the level, and the level is playing in the background. And we saw a doubling of the RV engagement rate when we made that change. So that's one good example of how you sell it, how you sell your rewarded video. Let's talk about the last point of the rewarded video transaction. Now I chose this exercise, and let's put rewarded videos in Super Mario Level 1, World 1. Now this is our first try. We just tried our luck here, and we added a rewarded video to the game. So we put a small chest inside the level, and because it's a hyper casual game, the player can get the Luigi skin if they watch a rewarded video. Now that is our first try here, and it's not really good, and mainly because it's positioned incorrectly. It's positioned in the middle of a level, and you're basically asking the player who is really enjoying the game, is jumping around, is interacting with it. You're asking him to full stop and watch an ad for the skin. Let's try to improve on it. Another option, we can just move the skin reward to the end of the level. That's a better position. I'm done playing with the level. I can watch the video and get my Luigi skin. Great. Let's try to improve it even more. So we still put the chest in the level, but instead of asking the player to watch a rewarded video, we put the chest in the player's inventory. He collected it. So now we're using what's called ownership. When the player gets to the end of the level, they'll be able to watch an ad and open the chest. The last iteration is, for me, I think the ideal way to position your rewarded video. So we added keys to the game. And now the player has an inventory of keys, which they can get in various ways. One of them is rewarded videos. So we kind of outsource the rewarded videos to the game's economy. So the player gets to the chest. He has a key, one key down from the inventory. He opens the chest, and voila, Luigi's key. That's great for him. And then you can take this placement and put it in different areas of the game and try to see which one works the best. So, summing things up, interstitial ads are equal to playtime. This is the best correlation of interstitial ads is the playtime, and rewarded videos are a transaction. For interstitial ads to be efficient, you must make sure your ad logic is correct and consistent. To improve playtime, you want to take care of difficulty, make sure your level design is good, and you want to use the hold the ball principle. And for the rewarded video transaction, you want to make sure it's clear, attractive, and well positioned. And my last point here is that games are complex. It's not like I can give you a formula. You do X and you get Y, and that's going to work every time. No, games are a bit more complex, and hyper casual is evolving. So you want to use these principles and always check yourself if you're doing the right thing, and check the data, of course, and play test. Game design is complicated, but it's also fun, and that's what we do here at Moonee. That's it.